Okay, we're going.
Hi, I'm Austin Erdlam.
And I'm Taylor Patton. Welcome to Kitchen Table Podcast.
We're going to motivate, educate, and relate to you guys, sharing our stories, helping you get 1% better in all areas of your life. Welcome to this week's episode of the 1440. Remember, 14 minutes and 40 seconds is 1% of your day. We want to make sure we're getting 1% better every day in some area of your life, each and every day. So today we're going to be talking about mental toughness. What does mental toughness mean to you? How does it relate to your definition compared to sports psychologists' definitions? And how can we grow our mental toughness in conquering thyself, like we talked about on Tuesday? So my question to you, Taylor, is simple. What is mental toughness to you?
Mental toughness to me is doing the things you don't want to do.
Elaborate.
And repeatedly doing them. And again, I already am not looking forward to it, but on my, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, I talked about getting a cold tub. And I guess I have a story that I guess I could have shared. Things don't go as planned. We talked about this last week. Went about my cold tub, and that is ready.
The Rubbermaid thing?
Yeah, I went, got out the car. It doesn't fit my car. It didn't fit in my car. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I went back and I returned it. I was like, I can't. And then they're like, okay, we can ship it. And I was like, okay. And I was like, how do we go about that? And he's like, okay. And then he types in some information. It can't be shipped to like the middle of like this month. And so I was like, okay. I was like,
that's weird. Since it's like in store.
So I was like, apparently I have to go back out. I didn't know how. I was like, okay,
gotta go back to the warehouse. And
yeah.
Ship back. Yeah.
I was like, so I was like, okay, awesome. And so it's supposed to get here. He's supposed to call me. He's supposed to call me sometime this week, but it's supposed to come sometime this month.
Okay.
And then I saw the one that you'd sent me, and so I think I'm gonna cancel it and get that one. And that just I think it's gonna be easier to
port. A little more portable.
Because
it's like legit cold tub thing too.
Yeah, and because I saw that one too, but I was like, that one just, I don't know. It just didn't seem like it was gonna be. But I was like, maybe that's just the one I need for right now.
Yeah.
And the one we're talking about is just like a little inflatable one, and that
where you just huddle up and put yourself in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that will really test my mental toughness here, and that, like, just thinking like
not getting the cold tub, getting in the cold tub.
Yeah. Yes, I should specify. But the other thing is like setting standards, and that for yourself. If you said that you're like the other day, I was like, I want to do the sauna for 40 minutes, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do 40, and then you actually have to sit in there for 40 minutes, and it's a whole different story. And so I think just like continuing to like win the war with your mind, and that like your mind gives up before your body does. So just knowing that and recognizing that.
Yeah, I like that. I think I agree with challenging things are a great way to grow mental toughness. I also think that mental toughness is about like,
I say not giving up on yourself too.
Explain. Well, we got to explain everything.
No, I'm open. Not giving up on yourself is like just because you fell or like something doesn't go right the first time doesn't mean that like you're a failure or like you're not good at a thing. Like no one's really good at something the first time, and that so just continually to like letting yourself get beat up until you get good at something or until you get okay at something, and that it continues to build like mental toughness. Like, okay, like I'm terrible at running, but I ran a half a mile. Okay, then I ran a half mile 30 seconds faster the next day or 2 weeks later, whatever, don't matter. And then just like saying, okay, now I'm mentally tough. I can run a half of a mile. Now I can run a mile. And okay, so what maybe you only were able to, or like you were only able to run, or felt like you only could run 3/4 of a mile. Okay, you're gonna walk the rest of the mile. That's not giving up on yourself.
Yeah, and one of the things I had wrote down from, again, the book I'm reading right now is called Do Hard Things, and it talks about mental toughness, confidence, all that kind of stuff. And one thing I literally wrote down is, we talked on Tuesday about not comparing yourself, and you said don't give up on yourself. Performance, the definition of performance, if you want to put it in a formula, is actual demands divided by the expected demand. So if you did better than you thought you would, that's self-growth right there, right? So that's not giving it, that should be a positive. So you shouldn't compare yourself, hey, I did better than I did yesterday. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
You're not giving up on yourself. Even if you get worse, you perform worse. That doesn't mean, okay, that was just me doing that was bad today, so can I make up for it tomorrow?
Yeah.
And like, we look at performance as such a black and white thing, and it's not. And then going off that, we get our feelings hurt because we feel like we didn't perform, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really, feelings, he talks about this, feelings are predictive, not reactive. When your brain, you get nervous because you're doing a challenge, you get nervous because you know your body's going to go through something, or it's going to test you in some way. That's why we get nervous.
Yeah.
Right? So our body is planning for that.
Yeah.
That's why if you can overcome those fears and understand what your body's feeling, it's a lot easier to be like, hey, this is where I'm at. How can I embrace this? How can I not give up on myself? How can I meet the challenge and create more mental toughness, right? Because mental toughness isn't about, psychology-wise, mental toughness is about how can we perform better than expected, right? So your boss is yelling at you and say you didn't do this right, this right, this right. You want to shoot back and say, you know what? I hate you. You're not in this meeting every day. You don't know what's going on. Instead of doing that, it's, yes, sir, I'll try to get better.
Yeah.
Taking the high road, doing the hard thing is mental toughness.
Yeah.
Right? Like we said, a quiet ego on Tuesday, that's mental toughness.
Yeah.
Being patient, all that kind of stuff. And then something else I wanted to talk about is how you said the sauna is hard, right? So for 40 minutes straight.
And the sauna's not hard. Sitting in there for 40
minutes. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. So one way to build mental toughness is by giving people choice, right? So if I go to you and say, hey, you're going to sit in the sauna for 40 minutes straight today, that's a daunting task, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh crap, I normally sit in there for 20 minutes. I got to double that.
Yeah.
So what you do as I don't know if you'll say it's a coach, mentor, whatever you're talking about, okay, you got to sit in the sauna for 40 minutes today. I don't care how you do it, but you got to do it. So then when you give athletes choices, or people, a coworker a choice, whatever, okay, you got to do it 40 minutes today. Maybe I go 20 minutes now, 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
And then the next day, okay, I'm going to do 25 minutes now, 15 minutes later. And you just keep building on that because they get a choice. They get to decide how hard it's going to be for them. So they get to grow that mental toughness, and it's on them to decide. And then they get to reflect, okay, did I give it my all? Am I copping out? What it is. And if you really want to build mental toughness, you're going to try to push yourself. Then you can reflect and feel good. Hey, I overperformed, I underperformed, right? And if you overperform, you're feeling good about it. And you didn't compare yourself at all. It's all within how can I get better? Because mental toughness is a individual thing. My mental toughness, my situations are different than your situations. I think sitting in the sauna for 40 minutes, for me, that's no problem. Right? But me getting up at 4 a.m. to work out, that's a daunting task. So again, it's another reason not compare yourself, and everybody's mental toughness or range of mental toughness or scenario is always going to be different.
Yeah.
I just think that was important to hit on about how selection matters. So you set a big boundary, and then let your coworkers, your athletes, your students roam within those boundaries and kind of figure it out for themselves. Because when they're in control and they have choice, everything feels better. And then they're in charge of their life, not you. You're just guiding them. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And also, like everyone is so individualized. Like everyone else's hard is different. And that, so what's hard to you isn't hard to me, and what's hard to me isn't hard to you. And that's okay. Because the only person at the end of the day you're really being mentally tough for is yourself. Because the only person you really got to deal with. You live with yourself 24/7. You only got to live with people for a certain amount of time. And at the end of the day, someone get to choose that amount of time.
Yeah, and I think something to reiterate is your mental toughness has to be trained for your purposes.
Yes.
If I go and sit in the sauna with you, that's for me, that's not gaining mental toughness. That's just being a good sport,
Yeah.
I need to do something that's hard for me too.
Yeah.
And sometimes that requires people to say no.
Yeah.
Hey, I can't do this. We talked about this on Tuesday again. I can't do this because I need to do this instead. Right? Because that's better for me. Again, it seems selfish, but you have to conquer yourself, and you will be able to, instead of reaching 10 more people, you can reach 100 more people just because of where you've been. And people might not agree with that. That's just my opinion. Another thing with mental toughness I want to reiterate is you can't go into training your mental toughness working at this isn't a podcast, working at a 7-Eleven and being like, yeah, that candy bar is $2.89. Here's your change. You can't do that training mental toughness. You got to be like locked in, ready to go, Because if you're not locked in, it's going to be hard to meet the challenge, and then you're not really gaining mental toughness. You're just going through the motions. You could go in with this is going to be hard.
Maybe, yeah. Like maybe their mental challenges are showing for it.
Yeah, and if that's where they're at, that's great. But I'm saying you can have a mindset going in, but when it's time to actually sit in the sauna and you're sitting in it, it can be miserable. Sometimes surviving is thriving.
Yeah.
But if you're going into the sauna and then you're like, I don't know if I can do this, and you don't do it, that's equivalent to 7-Eleven. Here's $2.89. Right. You know what I mean? If you're doing it, and that's where you're at in life, that's totally gaining mental progress or mental toughness because you are performing over the expected. Mm-hmm. But once you've done that 10 times, okay, you fail once. That's part of life, right? Sometimes you don't make it. But then the next time, can you overcome that? And can you get better this time? You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't just continually. At some point, the surviving should become thriving. If it's the exact same situation over and over, because you've done that 10 times, you should be able to be like, this is a little easier now. Otherwise, you might need to reflect on, okay, what do I need to change to make this a little easier? You know what I mean? Do I need to sit in a cold tub and then sit in the hot tub to make it feel not as hot? Or do I need to do it at a different time of day? Do I need to bring a book in with me? You got to be thinking about how process-wise, how can I make this easier? How can I have more control?
This is how I know that I literally think my body like frequencies at a higher degree temp. Is I just sit in the sauna for about a minute and a half and I'm like dripping sweat. And I watch people sitting there for like half an hour with me. They barely sweat. I'm like, what?
And it's just different, man.
Yeah. But it's just interesting to see how everyone's different.
And that's okay. It's probably a good thing. Yeah. Steph always gets mad at me because I'm like always super warm and she's always super cold. That's just who I am versus who she is.
I was thinking, in the middle of this, I was like, dang, I put my jacket back on. It would be chilly.
Nah, it ain't
it's
bad.
Not even bad, but
it's better than it normally is.
Yeah.
But again, everybody's different. Everybody's got different. We're building mental toughness right now for you.
Yeah.
Just try not. But other stuff with mental toughness.
Do one more.
Do one more?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Do one more.
Like,
so it's like you're doing conversation, hard conversations. Mm-hmm. Do one more.
Like keep going.
In the workplace.
Keep moving
do one
forward.
More. Yeah. You're doing reps. Do one more rep. And then again, like that's mental toughness. If you're telling yourself, I got 12 and you do 13.
The hardest thing is when you're like running or you're doing some sort of workout and you're like, last rep, last sprint, last math problem, right? And then somebody says, oh, there's one more. Yeah. And you're like,
Yeah.
Most people are like that. That's their reaction, right? But then if you do it, it's like, hey, you know what I did? Like Iron Cowboy, people think he did 100 Ironmans in a row. He did 101.
Yeah.
Nobody knows it because he's like, nobody's going to break this record. I'm going to do one more. I like that. Do one more. It's quote of the week, boys. Do one more. All right. That's 1440. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next week.
Love you. Bye.